Okay. Well, Lisa, you were telling us you were having an interesting day with the energy. So you want to tell us about, you can go ahead. I stopped you so you can do.
Yeah. I was just noticing, first of all, I'm noticing that a lot of us have had the intent of calling back the aspects of ourselves and being more conscious and integrating those. And so that's a process that has been in the forefront for me lately. So yesterday, I felt the energy of the storm we had here coming in the evening, like just my skin felt like it was crackling. And I felt myself getting pulled like higher and higher. And I was like grabbing grounding stones. And so I talked to a friend of mine who is familiar with storm energy because we're energy and they carry, I never thought about it, but the frequency of the storm. And there was something a little different with this one, plus I'm different. And I had told her, I said it felt like I was entering a higher dimension, or like a veil was being pulled open somehow. It was a really interesting experience. And I've talked to my guides about how I integrate energy. I woke up with a headache this morning, but I don't remember much from yesterday evening. I remember sitting down on the couch thinking, well, I'll read or do something. At some point, I guess I went to bed. I don't remember it. But I do remember waking up several times last night saying, I'm going to have to remember that. That's really interesting. Like, I know I was talking to different beings last night. And so my friend who's familiar with the storms had brought up those points about how it's a heightened state of energy, you know. But today I felt very peaceful, very calm. But a lot of issues with electronics. So electricity, just internet, you name it, cell tower. I even lost the cell tower at some point, which I found, again, very interesting.
Yeah, very. Well, last night I woke. Interesting, you mentioned waking up because there were two times that I can remember. I woke up with that same. I need to remember this. It was like that. Oh, I get it now. And I can't even remember what I was thinking about it. But at the time, I was like, I need to remember this when I wake up. And I thought, well, there's no way I'll forget this. And then I was, got up and was fixing my coffee, and I remembered having those remembrances, but I could not remember what the epiphanies were.
The same here this morning, but what was different was I had absolute acceptance of that. I knew on some level I still remembered, and the message I got was, you'll know it when you need to know it. Whatever it is, it'll come forward in its own time. And it was really lovely not to go chasing it, just to know it was there and be happy with that.
Yeah, it's exactly the same message I got, because I was like, do I try to sit here and try to figure it out? And it was like, no, the more you try to figure it out, the further away it'll get. Just, it's there, it's in there, and it'll surface when it needs to.
Do you think that is a new way of integrating, because it takes the mind kind of out of that chasing down and thinking about it and playing and poking with it? So that total, for me, just kind of laughing and being like, oh, that's okay. It's there, that kind of surrendering. I feel like I can feel it running in me. And maybe perhaps because, like you were saying, we weren't chasing it. So is it the mental process sometimes that perhaps keeps it from fully entering our being? I don't know. That was just a puzzling question.
Yeah, what came up is the trust. If we trust that it will come up, when we need it. We don't have to try to grab it and control it. But,
I think we've been in the old paradigm, we've been, every one of us pretty much have put our brains in charge.
mm-hmm.
And so we've been deciphering everything with our brain. And now some of us are starting to let our heart be the leader, and it looks at everything completely different. Possession is not
Mm-hmm.
the way the brain thinks of it. Having something accessible isn't like the brain. The brain needs to have it right here, right in this place, whereas the heart says, "Oh, I know where that's at. Yeah, I'll get to that when I need to. I'm constructing highways and pathways to the things that come to me, and I don't need to bring it closer to me, because what is closer? What is, when you're part of the universe, what is closer? Brain needs it right here.
Yeah.
We need it right here in order and all that. Whereas the heart, I mean, what is your imagination? Where does that come from?
It comes from that expansive energy of infinite possibilities.
Right, but how does it get to you? It doesn't come through your brain.
No.
The brain keeps it from coming to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right. That's what I wrote down. That's the difference when you were talking about the heart coming in through the heart as opposed to the mind. I wrote down that's the difference between known and knowing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now that just, as soon as you said that, that kind of flowed in. Okay, that makes sense. That internal knowing what it just is, and known, that knowledge part, which is all head.
Plus you've got
read
okay.
the first one.
Yeah. We've done this before. Let the knowing come.
I'm going to turn you up a little bit and have you repeat that, because, okay, say that one more time.
So Tim made a list of things that was coming to him prior to the call. And the very first one on the list is, we've done this before. Let the knowing come.
Wow. Oh, I got goosebumps.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
part of it too is we believe, our brains try to hold on to it and catalog it because we fear we won't have it when we need it.
Right, because our brains are stuck in scarcity mode,
mm-hmm.
whereas our hearts are not.
Mm-hmm.
Hearts just need to open so we can get a sense of where everything is,
Mm-hmm.
without the brain getting in the way.
And our brain puts things in boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And another interesting thing that's been coming forward, I had watched a video of a channeling, and I think it was Amanda when she channeled Prince.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, he had brought something up about, I don't know if he was talking about where he was from or where we may be headed, but language itself. How many times have we had that knowing or an experience, and it's so archaic to express it in words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's impossible too. We talked about that the other day. The words just don't.
Well,
and that's part of that brain in the boxes,
yeah. Most of what I get are not in words and pretty pictures. They're impressions.
Yes.
I then have to turn it into language so that we talk about it. But that's archaic. I mean, as our telepathy comes online, we won't need to change it into words and be so limiting.
And I do have a sense of that coming online, and I think everybody may experience it a little differently. Some people, and some of that is because, you can talk to somebody and right away kind of where they're at. So some of those impressions, because we're centering in the heart area, for me, I interpret it that way energetically. telepathically is something I want to play with more, because that's more a thought transfer. It comes from the heart, but I haven't had a chance to really play with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we've all had telepathy, so we're re-remembering it.
Mm-hmm.
So we all have our own form of it, just like we all have our own truth. We all have our own kind of operating system for our telepathy and how it operates. The sense I'm getting as it comes on more and more line, it's the knowing. It's
Mm-hmm.
just being in someone's presence and knowing that she's happy,
Mm-hmm.
or that she's sad, or it's just knowing. It's somehow, some way, my heart reaches out to her energy field and taps into it. And then the knowing is all the stuff that we've forgotten about how to decipher these messages.
Absolutely. And the minute you said that, I got like a hit of emotion of just explaining that I just saw this open heart and this kind of transfer of energy that way. And I have goosebumps again. And it made me very emotional, because what a beautiful way to communicate.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I think we've often thought, or I'll say I have often thought in the past, telepathy being like you're sending something, you think a thought, or you think, and it's in words or whatever, and you're sending it to the other person, or you're trying to read, and it's completely nothing with the brain, nothing with that. It's all heart, and it's all sensing the energies. And at the very least, if you are sending and receiving anything, it's pictures and images and impressions, not words. And it's very different, and you can tell when you're linked and getting it or not.
And I think compassion will be a key to that, because when you're in that state of kind of that compassionate state, that loving, compassionate state, the two kind of go hand in hand. That would make the communication flow
Mm-hmm.
so much easier.
Yeah, the heart has to be open. Both hearts have to be open, or the interchange will occur.
Some people are more empathetic than other people. That's not really an accident.
Mm-hmm.
There could be many reasons for that. But the empathy is a method of reaching out or allowing someone's energy to impact your energy field and transfer some of that energy. And it's the flavor. I mean, no one ever talks about the flavor of energy. Well,
Mm-hmm.
energy has flavor.
Mm-hmm.
It has different colors. It has different, it gives you different feelings when you tap into it. So to me, telepathy is so much more than any TV show or writing or article or whatever that we could ever read. It's much more encompassing than that. And when it comes online, or as it's coming online, I think it's learning how to swim.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just flop right in the water and get going. Other people, they got to dip their toe in, and then they'll put a, part of a leg in, and they'll be, and there's no wrong answer to it. It's like whatever you're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
But there are those, the starseeds, that came here for a reason, to share these qualities, because these qualities are coming online prior to the majority.
And I think being highly empathic, it just came to me, practicing that skill will help a lot, because you have to have your own boundaries, but you also have to be responsible with your energy and not be invading someone's space. Or so you really, when someone learns about that empathic ability, there's, again, it goes back to so many layers of being conscious of where you're at, being conscious of not automatically, because it's almost an automatic where when you feel something, you're drawn to it. And so it's not just your personal boundaries, it's the boundaries with others too.
And that's getting in touch with your higher self so that your higher self gets in touch with their higher self when you're dealing with individuals, of knowing if you're empathetic and you're opening yourself to that, of not overstepping your bounds or their bounds. And
Right.
being responsible. I've been talking to her for years now. We can learn to do this, and we can do this, and we do this. My main concern is being responsible.
Yeah.
Being responsible for all the capabilities that are coming online. I would rather not have a power or an ability if I thought that I was going to be going around hurting people.
Right, right. So there's a certain amount of integrity, I think, that goes with the gifts. And I believe that's why they come online differently, because we all respond differently. We have different gifts in that manner. And it usually comes, that's at a point where you're ready for it. So
Well, there's in any exchange, there's a giver and a receiver. And oftentimes they kind of switch back and forth. And to me, you kind of hit on it about open heart. It's not whether or not your head is ready, it's whether or not your heart's ready. So by asking the question and putting it in context of saying, how do I bring that ability online responsibly?
yeah, and I just wrote down pure intent.
Yeah.
That's important.
And a full heart. I got it too. Was if your heart is not, if you're not loving and feeling your heart, and your heart is not in a whole state, those aren't going to come online as either, because you won't be doing it with the right intent.
Well, to me, the heart opening is the unlocking of the activation. It's rolling out the red carpet so that capability or that message can come through to you. So someone might have the right words and ask the question or whatever, but if they don't have the right heart opening, they're not unlocking it. They're not paving the road so that message can make it to them. But they've started the journey by asking the question.
Absolutely. What else is on your list?
Well, the first one we said was, we've done this before. Let the knowing come. Starseeds, most of the starseeds have gone through this before elsewhere. And that's why they've come here to share their experience. But in the other ascensions, or whatever you want to call it, that they've gone through, they played whatever role there. And now they may be playing the same role, but oftentimes they're playing a completely different role. But just the knowing, and we've gone through this before. It's like, how come I know this? How come this comes to me? How come it's not a coincidence?
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a lot of remembering.
Yeah. And that's why I said, let the knowing commence, because it's going to come in as knowings. We might call it remembering, but it's really going to just, I didn't know it yesterday, and now I know it today.
And I'm sure of it, and I embody it, and it's not just I understand the concept, everything.
Right, because there's a lot of things we think, but do we really act on it, or do we let it impact our thinking about how we operate day, minute by minute.
Right.
There's a lot of it we don't. We think these things, but then we go and do these things. So we can talk to someone and say, yeah, I think this, and I'm, this, and then you go back and you do your normal stuff, which is counter to what you've just been saying, I think.
Yeah, we were just talking about that earlier this week. Lisa and I were on our weekly call too, about how you have to integrate it and embody it, then you speak it, you actually do it, you find yourself an alignment with it in all ways, rather than just understanding it. And then when something strikes you, you out of habit or whatever, you say something and you think, oh my goodness, that was from the old belief system, not from what I'm saying I believe right now.
The programming,
Yeah.
To me, it's the knowing bypasses a lot of the prerequisites to get to a full effect on you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas saying something, I think this, I read these articles and it
Mhm.
got me thinking, and yet I haven't incorporated it into my standard operating, procedure or whatnot. Knowings kind of bypasses all that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If your heart's open, I say you don't really get the knowings unless your heart is open. So
Mm-hmm.
I think all those ingredients kind of come together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And going into your personal truth, there's nothing wrong with doing research or reading things. Sometimes that's how we find our truth. But I'm finding it now much more comfortable to sit and be quiet and just see what comes, as opposed to the searching, because I really want it to be within my truth, so to speak, or within my knowing, because we are experience things differently and have different roles, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the community. Everybody has strengths, and it's the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that goes to what we were talking about earlier. There's billions of people on this planet, and there's that many truths out there that we all each have our own, and it's all inside of us, which takes the silence, the quiet time, the going within, which has been my journey, because I was the seeker. Just gotta seek it,
Yeah,
and it's like it's all right here.
Seeking is not bad, but like you said, the answers are already inside us.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is we look for activations.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right. Sometimes in that looking, you'll find a little nugget.
Yes.
That all of a sudden you're in quiet and contemplating, and then it is like an activation, very much so.
Absolutely.
The next one was some people are in meet and greet and some are moving. So, and it's actually bigger than this. There are more roles. We were talking about roles before.
Mm-hmm.
You can find out where you're at if you're truly honest with yourself and look at in context, like, what are you doing right now? Like, how are you holding yourself? How are you engaging with people? How do you deal with someone who has a difference of opinion? Your reaction to all of that is a mirror to show you, like, what role you're currently in. Are you in meet and greet where you're out there talking to people and you're not really looking to go into depth on anything. You just want to meet and greet and pass a little bit of energy here and there. And then you've got others who are diving in and going in deep to certain areas because that's where their missions or where they currently aimed at.
Mm-hmm.
And that may change.
Mm-hmm. And no judgment either way. Some are meet and greet, and that's where they're comfortable.
Right, but if someone does judge, then that shows you something about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what's your reaction when someone quizzes you on something?
Yeah.
Is it, do you go on guard, or do you go, hey, You just created a playground. Let's go there.
And literally, if someone says something and I have a strong reaction, kind of like that, now I know, okay, that's an area I need to go into because I reacted. There may be some truth there or something that I need to uncover within myself. So yeah, it's that mirror. So I really pay attention when I feel that reaction some way.
And you're having that reaction because you bring people into your path in order for you to see that reaction from you.
Yeah. They are actually doing a service for us by shining a light on those shadows we still carry. Absolutely.
Yeah, you requested that they come into your path and they answered the request. Mm-hmm. So even if it's somebody you don't like, that's just 3D. Mm-hmm. We don't know what's underlying at the heart level, and so
and what their experience has been, where they're at within that experience, because some have chosen some really difficult experiences. So I always try to have that compassion of knowing that it may be taking them a little longer to work through those processes of letting that part of the story go. It's part of the healing.
Matt, what did I say yesterday? I told her the more my heart is opening and I'm starting to realize what I'm going through and what's touching me and whatnot, and the more I can step back and think of all these people, the more I'm falling in love with each and every person, because I'm realizing the sacrifices they've made and the pain that they've gone through and the bluntness sometimes of the experiences here. Even though they signed up to come here, you don't know it. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, yeah, you can imagine that roller coaster ride until you get on it and you're going up the top, and then now you're coming down. It's, oh my gosh, I had no idea it was going to be like that. Yeah. You don't realize it. So it's making me appreciate and respect each of these individuals. I'm not completely there yet, but I'm getting closer and closer to where I truly feel like I'm falling in love with humanity. But not just humanity, anyone who came here, because I'm sure there's some that wouldn't consider themselves humans. Mm-hmm. They're in human form right now, but where they came from, they more than likely were not human.
And that in itself is very challenging. That's quite an adjustment. Mm-hmm. And yes, it is my belief based on experience that when we decide to come here and we talk about what we want to experience, we have to remember the vibration we're in. We are in the all-knowing. We are in the all-loving. So our view of what we're going to experience is from that higher level. So then we get in body, and it feels a lot tougher. But, without that, we wouldn't have the experience. So I think it's easier to understand that now as we're expanding and our energy is getting higher. It's easier to kind of tap into that observation place. But yes, I remember thinking, what was I thinking? What was I thinking when I planned this life? Oh my gosh. But yeah, I had a conversation. I had a near-death experience, which I recall very clearly. And in order to make the decision whether or not I was going to come back, I was in a between state. So I can't imagine what it's like, but I still had a certain amount of the human vibration, because how could I make a choice without having the higher and being in touch with the emotions of the people that I had made contracts with. And so anyway, it was this between state so I could make this decision. And so coming back and understanding more, I can see how it would be easier to plan these things, because we know it's going to be okay. We're there and we know, no matter what, it all works out. It's all for us. It's all for the other people. We see that synchronicity and that exchange. So, but then when we're fully in human body, we have to go through it and go through it on that realm. Although, like I said, now it is a little easier having raised vibration. You do tend to understand a lot more. So,
Well, I think we're many parts to us, but two major parts of what we are knowers and role players. So our higher self is constantly in the knower realm, and it sends out a shard of itself, that being us, to play a role. And we go play a role. So we come down here and, for instance, and we play a role. That person's got all these qualities, and they're primarily an accountant. This person comes down, they've got these qualities, and they're primarily a construction worker. And we're not meant to be identical, because then what would be the good in having two identical people playing even different roles, when you've got many other sentient beings out there, or shards, playing all kinds of different roles and extrapolating the relevant information from playing that role with these qualities. So we're constantly doing that. But when do you know your role is morphing or coming to an end? You start waking up. You start knowing more beyond what your role required. Now I think we're going into new roles, and hence our knowing is starting to increase. And that's when I know it's time for a role change.
so it's like a major activation,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much. It's like, okay, now you're here with this purpose, whatever that purpose is.
So for my primary role, or not primary, but my previous roles, I only needed this much information.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm the way I feel right now is I need this much information, and it's climbing. So I'm just kind of going, okay, this keeps going. A role that's commensurate with that knowing. Wow. Okay.
Which requires that, if you take a computer analogy, it requires you upgrade all the components. You increase.
We are being upgraded.
We increase our capacity.
We are. Our DNA's being upgraded.
Everything's being changed.
Our bodies.
Our processors are
our
different.
Bodies. We just finished talking about our
Yeah.
body changes over the last year.
Yeah, which is interesting. Speaking of body changes, because she was saying about the storm last night, and you felt that, pulling apart of that breaking. And I was thinking about your experience yesterday.
Yeah.
With your back. With your.
Oh yeah. Well, I was thinking.
But go ahead.
I also got sick yesterday.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you did. It was yesterday evening too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I worked out, had my normal day or whatever, went back to relax, and I was just reading, doing one thing, and out of nowhere, I just got sick to my stomach, and just hurled.
Mm-hmm.
And I have, and then as soon as I was done, and it was, what was that? And then afterward, ever since then, I have felt completely different.
Yeah.
Like something something like I've been working on my heart chakra, but I told her I felt like now I can say this. I was working on the front of it and the gate
That.
on the back, and I felt like my back just opened up. And now she even noticed. She was giving me a hug, and she was like,
Back is different.
because normally my shoulder blades were this close together, and now they're like,
It physically is different. Normally when I would hug him like on his back, the shoulder blade would hit me like right here, and now it's like over here.
Isn't that amazing? That's just amazing. Yes, something energetically was big last night. And it might tie into, I think they're calling this a pink moon, which I kind of loved because I'm feeling very in that love space today. But yeah, wow. And that was so symbolic of purging out what you didn't need.
Mm-hmm.
So now you had all this room for what came online.
Exactly. I was kind of looking for wings back there.
Because I told her right along my spine from the middle of my shoulder blade, but along my spine all the way down
Your low back.
to low back
yeah.
is sore.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
I couldn't think of any other reason for it to be sore like that. And she said, "You check to make sure you don't have wing nubs there."
Well, you know that they may exist etherically.
yes.
Yeah.
You know, we may not be able to see them vibrating, but yet we can see them energetically, so to speak.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, and it is you referenced the pink moon because we do have that full moon tonight, or starting today. So it was a very high energy, but very loving, very, encompassing, and yeah, it's been a beautiful day today. I sat and listened to the rain this morning and the thunder, and it was just like it was hugging me or something. That's what it felt like.
That's exactly how I feel about the energy of this particular moon. It feels very different. It does feel very loving and nurturing, and the storm is also symbolic of washing away all that debris.
So which one are you pointing? He said, yeah, which one is it?
Where you're going is pulling you. Can you feel it?
Yeah, so the love and the...
I really feel it.
Yes, absolutely.
I really feel it.
So it's not a destination.
No.
A state of consciousness. Mm-hmm. It's taking your ever-present now and from this size and expanding it and making it include more of you and more of the kinds of things that you want to put in your now to spur you or activate you even further or grow you.
That's a good way of putting it. The things you want to put in your now. I like that because it does feel that way. It feels like things are coming in differently now. I feel the way they're coming in now are differently, but it's faster. The integration is faster. It's a lot more expansive.
Mm-hmm. Are you aware of you?
Are you aware of you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
So we're taking our now. We could only put so much in there, and now we make it bigger so we can fit more of us in it. And actually, it's not coming from us. It's coming from our higher self into the ever-present now so we can be aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like there's multi-layers to that one, too. Yeah, I can feel it because it's aware of...
It's multidimensional.
Yeah, it's aware of you, aware of your your energy and how it's, touching everything else and aware of you, the big you.
Right, but
You know?
there is, we put a proximity to it,
Right.
but there is no proximity to us. There is no. We can reach across universes. We can, reach across dimensions and pull those things. How else did I talk about those dream stuff and whatnot during the Sheila and Lisa call?
You had to be pulling it in from somewhere else. Yeah.
It wasn't Earth.
Yeah. So when you said, "Are you aware of you?" and then you were talking about the expansion of multi-dimensional, and that was kind of, when you said that, that's what I was thinking was, again, it goes back to all those different aspects of ourselves. So are you aware of you? And that means that, that hugeness of being multidimensional, and what does that mean for the individual, and playing with that and getting to know those parts of yourself, because they are you. And the more you, I think, touch those and remember those, the more beautiful it is, the more you do understand yourself, and you do understand the larger community, the larger everything, whether it's an individual, whether it's, 3 galaxies away, feeling that kind of connection because you're a part of it. Knowing you brings that in, for me at least,
Right. Plus, what's the foundation of your truth? How much you know. So the more you can grow what you know, meaning aware of you, the more your truth grows. And you'll outgrow some things of your previous truth into your stepping stone. Because I see truth as it's a constant, never-ending stepping stone process of role playing and knowing.
Absolutely. And I think the more we expand, the more we can't fit into those places.
Right.
That's right.
So that can't be our truth because we don't fit there.
No, not at all. You can't go back to that.
And that's
we talked about that, and I think you reach a certain point. Gina and I were talking about how if you try, for her and I, if we try to go back to something and it used to be comforting, oh my gosh, it's instantly so uncomfortable, and you're like, no, I don't want to be there, which is beautiful. What a beautiful thing to keep us moving. Can't go back. I don't want to go back, but
no, it's the frequency hopping that's happening. Not all of us are on the same frequency, but we're all being urged to move. It's you can't go back to yesterday. It's yesterday doesn't fit anymore. It's you've outgrown that, and you're going to outgrow today. And the people who can accept that and not have an issue with it, and doesn't affect their security and whatnot, are going to have an easier time with it. But there's a lot of people that are still not woke. That's scary. That, give me my mainstream media every day, and give me my same sitcoms and the same foods and the same thing, and I'll suffer through it because it's, at least I'm familiar with it.
Right.
A toehold that gives them something they consider firm to put their toes on, versus that floating or that expansion, feeling of expansion as you walk forward into it. I think that scares them.
Do you think that it's some kind of imprint that, because a lot of it comes down to being afraid of, what if I am that big? What does that mean? And why is that so frightening?
Mm-hmm.
You know? Because once you start in that process, wow, you know, then and it does take responsibility. It does take changed behavior. It does take work, but it can be done in a loving way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not arduous. But yeah, I wonder, you know, those that are stuck, I understand why they are where they are, because to do something different is scary. And a lot of times it does, well, everything in the 3D was all about fear and control, fear and control, fear and control. So, but what is it that's so scary to the average person about being big? Because even myself, I have moments where, you know, I kind of think I want to play it small, and immediately, oh, no, you know, and I've gotten out of that and gotten better with that. Obviously, I'm on this call. I had this thing about not being seen. I don't know why, but what is it about that that's so scary? Because it's so beautiful. I love seeing people like that.
I think that each of us, and I can draw the trajectories,
Mm-hmm.
but I believe each of us have a mandate to grow. We have a mandate to expand. We're each a universe, and we're expanding. This existence here on this planet, I told her that I believe we're as far from source as you can get, pretty much, and still be sentient.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone through all the densities
Mm-hmm.
to get here into the most dense place that you can still be sentient, and knowing that there was programming here, and it was going to require each of us an awakening process to get there, and some more than others would have a harder time with it, but that was part of the learning process. So if you look at the beginning, it looks almost impossible, but then if you can jump ahead to when whatever they've had to do to get through it, and look at the end, well worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So, because otherwise, why would you do it?
Right.
You wouldn't do it if you didn't see the end and say this was going to be worth it. So, no matter how difficult it is, we can't save them. It's not our job to save them. It's their job to save themselves. Because if we save them, we create a dependent. So it's our job to advertise to them, advertise that it's possible,
Mm-hmm.
but not to basically go in and save them.
And that's what I was thinking, is the ones that are stuck will run into beings to affect them some way.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it'll start on an unconscious level. And what I've learned is to check in with the heart as to what you share, how much you share. You don't want to overload. You don't want to preach. And a lot of times the best way is by example. Just being you, doing you, holding that frequency. And I have found it brings people naturally along in their own wherever, you know, whatever their specific learning or experience or whatever, it allows it in their time. Simply by I have found the best thing I can do for anyone else is to hold my own frequency and to live it. Just to live it.
I told her that we suck at providing aid. In this 3D, we think, oh, just give them money or give them food or whatever, that's the answer. And oftentimes that's not the answer, because they're only treating symptoms.
Right.
And who do we think we are that it's our job to step in and fix their problems?
Right.
It's not. Our job is to, like you said, grab our sovereignty and live it, and be an advertising, huge billboard that goes, there, that's it. I don't even know everything he's doing, but I can feel it. It feels right. It feels comforting. It feels like a place that I would want to be a part of, or at least I want to exude that feeling to others.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if you're tending, like you claim your own sovereignty, and you're tending to yourself, and you're getting your wisdom from inside, and your focus there, you're consistent, and therefore they're going to be more likely to see that billboard with the consistency of it. Because if we're not tending, each of us, to ourselves, then that consistency, is going to detract. What is it?
So this is another item. Each of us are growing into a pillar of sanctity.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes. Yeah. And it is a state of being sacred completely. That was the feeling I was trying to.
It's sovereign, sacred.
Yeah.
It's be that crystal being that we're meant to be, that advertises, because you're transparent, all the qualities that you are.
Yeah. What came up for me is like those places that you go, or, and everybody has different ones, that you just feel that sacredness, that peacefulness, that relaxed, where you can just be yourself in that space. And if we take care of if I take care of me and have this be that energy of sacred sanctity, the peacefulness, then as I'm walking through the world, beings that interact with me are going to feel that. They're going to feel, and they're going to know that's me each time I come through, and they're going to wonder, how do I get that for myself? Or, it activates something in them to say, this is possible, even in the environment in which we live.
Well,
And on some level, it transmutes that energy by simply being there.
Well, each of us, when someone comes to talk to us, each of us provides an obstacle course to get through to us. And so I want to get rid of my obstacle course so that someone can speak directly to me, and they can see what I am and what I'm about, without that obstacle course that they have to, well, did he mean this, or is he implying that? Or, gosh, every time I have to go speak to Gina, I know it's going to be an ordeal, or it's getting rid of all that. So that, and to me, that's where the telepathy is going. Because there's going to be no more hiding. There's going to be no more need for, a safe place or whatever, because everything is going to be, you're going to be a walking billboard about how you're feeling and what you're dealing with and what qualities you possess and everything. We're going to be reading from each other, and it's going to feel good once we get through this obstacle course to that.
Yeah, it breaks all those illusions.
And it doesn't mean that we are 100% happy, bubbly all the days. It's being honest with it. If you're having an off day, it's like, I'm having an off day, removing yourself from it, doing what you need to do to tend to yourself. Not that fake kind of putting on I'm perfect and everything's great. And, it's very much.
Because that's a trap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is a trap.
But we're getting rid of those traps. Think about it right now. I'm more likely, when something bad happens, to go, oh, well, maybe, what am I supposed to learn?
Yeah.
I don't get down like I used to, or let it bother me, because I'm thinking I put it there. So my bad day is my making. I created it because the good days weren't giving me the message. So I needed something. My higher self needed to catch my attention, so it gave me a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
Which is a great way of understanding it. It really is. I think the mistake people can make is that attachment to, if I'm going to be this higher being, I need to be in perfection. And that kind of negates the whole experience of being here.
what is perfection?
Exactly.
Exactly. So, yeah, and that, there was a lot of programming with that, and if you think about it as a child, you know, what are you sad about? You have nothing to be sad about, or go be nice to Aunt Susie or whatever, you know, be a good whatever, be a good boy, be a good girl. And there's so much about that people are purging and stepping into their true authenticity. And you know it when you see it. I love it. I don't care what somebody's doing. If it's within their authenticity, I get so excited about that. I fall in love with them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we weren't meant to all look so uniform like we do now. We were meant to be wildly different. And we just got sucked into, we volunteered, but we got sucked into the 3D trap and the programming put on us. We went through the same indoctrination, schooling. And so it basically made us all relatively uniform. Compared to where we came from, we are very, very uniform. We all roughly do the same things. We all roughly eat the same kind of foods. We all roughly listen to, the music that's dished up to us or whatnot. Yeah, there's little differences here and there, but you back out far enough and you think, yeah, pretty much we're all pretty much the same robots. And now we're getting away from it and developing or uncovering our sovereignty. And that has to do with, no, really, what is your favorite color? What is your favorite music? What is your favorite? And what I'm finding is I need more information. I need more knowings, because right now I'm relegated to such small knowledge base that the choices are Republican or Democrat. That's not enough. Sorry, I want more choices.
Yeah, the hair color. It was interesting a few years back when you started seeing more people have blue hair or purple hair or whatever, and people's reaction to that, or tattoos or this or that. And I remember feeling, oh my gosh, what are they doing? They're, how are they going to be employable? And all these things were coming. That was back in my programming days. And now I look at it and I see somebody that has colored hair. I'm like, you go. It's a whole different feeling. It's like, if you want to wear polka dot hair, and that fits you, you're not doing it for somebody else, you're doing it because it resonates inside your soul, then by all means.
That's funny that you said polka dot hair, because when you were talking about that, two things popped in my mind. One was my youngest son had colored his hair some crazy color, and I was tickled and surprised that this little older lady came up and just said, "That's a beautiful color," or something like that. And I remember kind of going, wow, this. And then you mentioned the polka dot hair. I was actually in the store one time, and it was an older lady, and she had pink polka dots in her hair.
Yeah, because she got to the point she didn't care. She was just going to do what she wanted to do.
Yeah, and I had that reaction like, I love you. That is awesome. Who cares what anybody thinks? If it, makes you happy, you're not hurting anybody, express yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're letting out your shine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is important.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important. And I think when we do start getting into letting go of these things, that's where innovation happens.
Absolutely.
That's where creativity happens, because you're no longer being shoved into this space here.
Well, you have to do it if you're going to develop or find your sovereignty.
Absolutely.
You're not going to find your sovereignty by staying in the box. The box,
No.
it was made for us so that we didn't find our sovereignty. I think what they were trying to do is milk every bit of existence within the 3D paradigm for as long as they could.
Yeah.
Sure.
But and you could see the trajectory of it. That was not a sustainable. They knew. They still know. They know right now that it's not, and that people are waking up, and people are stepping outside the box, and they're walking, and they're flying, and they're levitating, and they're, if they're not doing it today, they'll be doing it tomorrow.
Because they even, I mean, we were talking a little bit this morning about the knowings coming on and the talents coming through. As all of a sudden you're going to know, you're going to pick up a brush and you're going to start painting, and it's going to be beautiful, and you didn't follow any of the rules or what's been trained. Music when you're trained, or art when you're trained, can take away some of that free form creativity. I know that, if some people like I have a cousin who is very musically inclined, and they told her, do not go take music lessons or go to a music school because it'll stifle your creativity. So a lot of the rules we've had have stifled a lot of that, like you said, the creativity, the innovation, because we've learned these set of rules and we've learned to operate within those versus just, letting it free form go.
Yeah, you'll never create anything new by playing by the rules. It'll just be something else regurgitated over again.
Yeah, you might get incremental changes, but nothing,
Well, you got to spend so much time. Okay, great. I learned how to play the piano, but in so doing, I was indoctrinated.
Yes.
And now, once I'm on my own, I have to spend so much time shucking off all that indoctrination before I get to the true, authentic piano player that I am.
Exactly.
Because all they did was create a copy of them.
Exactly.
What else do you have here?
I have the touch of a hand.
Expand on that.
This is multifaceted.
I got the feeling it was.
This is when you're in your quiet moment and for whatever reason, you want a touch of a hand. You want a touch of what the touch of another being's hand might do for you or do to you, instead of telling you what to do, instead of giving you the answers, just a touch of the hand.
Just like
hey, I'm here, keep going. So that's one. But it's also, as you're walking through doing whatever, imagine touching someone else. Just imagine someone else out there struggling, and you don't want to give them the answers. You don't want to do things for them. What's the best way of helping them? Touch of a hand.
It's a way of being present. It's a way of being present both on the other realms, plural, and also within this being. It's just that's when I do healing, I prefer to touch my clients. It's just a preference.
To me, it's you're portaling. You're portaling from your ever-present now, because you have to be in the now to even think to do this. And you're reaching through a portal that you create into someone else's now, and you give them that touch. It has to be done with intent, and that intent matters.
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
And it has such an effect on people too when you do. And it is, what's also going in my mind is it interesting how we've been, again, conditioned the last several years to not touch other people. Don't touch them in the workplace, don't touch them at school. I can remember my elementary school teachers giving big hugs. and it's rare that you would see that in today's
Right.
situation because of
Right, but we're going back
to the touch.
to that. But
Mhm.
the touch doesn't have to be physical. It can be
energetic,
which
Mhm.
is reaching through your portal into their portal and actually providing the
Mhm.
sense of
Mhm.
touch.
Well, you can do that, when you were talking about being in your quiet space, in your mind's eye. People forget we can have these conversations with them, and you can envision touching them, and it occurs.
Mhm.
It occurs.
You imagine being in someone's presence, okay, and talking to them and having a connection, but not touching them.
Mhm.
And then just imagining just sharing a touch.
Mhm.
Like, what is it about that
Mhm.
it just
Mhm.
fundamentally changes everything when a touch is provided?
Mhm.
There's something to that.
Yeah, well, babies, they have research about babies that are touched when they're newborns versus the ones that are. It's that energy exchange that's so important.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've got to get back to that and get into that thinking mode and undo the programming that they've slapped on us concerning touching.
Mhm.
As we become more sovereign, it's more of a gift.
Mhm. Mhm. Interesting. It also keeps coming up that it's also an element of that I see you,
Yep.
Yeah.
of being seen and being,
Acknowledged.
yeah, exactly.
I'm going to let Isis in here because she's going crazy. Sorry.
This is the energy. I support the dog.
She does not like it when I lock her out.
Look at her tail. She's happy now.
She's happy now. Yeah, she's my little soulmate there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, touch is very important. I love that. It is an acknowledgement, and it is an I see you. And that's happening more and more too. That was another programming of that almost blinders, no interaction, and no wonder people were unhappy because they felt like they didn't exist on some level. So I think we all like to be acknowledged just for our existence,
And as our telepathy comes online, the definition of touch is going to change.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see that changing?
Yes. Obviously, I think you'd have trouble developing telepathy without an open heart.
Mm-hmm.
3D is so 3D. It's so physical. It's so touch. There's a reason why touch in the 3D. Where we're going, touch, physical touch. I'm not going to say it's not going to be present or valuable, but it's going to be I see you. It's going to be I pay attention to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm focusing on you, and it's going to be not mental. It's going to be heartfelt. It's I'm not just walking past you and not waving, not giving you at least a fleeting, turn,
right,
and recognizing you. But it's all done telepathically, which is impression based. We're going to get so good at it that we're going to be doing it everywhere. It'll be the equivalent. You can't walk to your mailbox without saying hi neighbor to 5 or 6 or 10 or neighbors. You're not going to be able to do it because everyone is just so eager to touch. But the physical touch is going to be it's not as important. Physicality is more important in 3D than it is where we're going.
Yeah.
It is. And that was bringing me to touch being different also in energetic merging and energetic exchanges that way. I think that's the next level to the physicality that 3D right now finds so important. I do see how you could have the same thing with having, both parties agreeing, but having a certain amount of energy merge or exchange, and that would be very much like a hug or a touch, or it could be all done energetically, once we get to that level. I think we're playing with some of that now, but not in the pure manner that I see in my mind's eye. Like, I can see this kind of energetic merging kind of thing. I think the actual merge would be much more intimate than this slight energy exchange.
Yeah. There was a picture today on Facebook that I think Sheila was the one who posted it, but I had shared it. And it was, we think of intimacy as sex, but intimacy is really that I'm paying attention to you and I see you, and I'm, it was like I'm connected to you, and that's kind of the feeling as you're talking about that and what we're talking about touch is that really I am here, I am in this moment with you. I'm not thinking about other things. I'm just in that moment with you. And it can be in the physical, it can be just sitting thinking about someone that is not physically close to you, but can be across the world. And it's happened many times where I've been thinking about someone and kind of sending them a touch, and I'll get a text or I'll get an email from them, and it's somebody I haven't heard from in years maybe, and all of a sudden I get an email or text from them. Tim and I've done that the last 2 days. I picked up my phone to text him, and while I was typing the text, his text came into me.
And that goes along with that telepathy. It's that energy that, but yeah, intimacy is so much more outside of that physical definition. Real intimacy is looking at someone in their eyes and, like you were saying, being present. It's listening. There's kindness. There's so many different expressions of that, and I think that nuance was lost. But it, again, with all the new energy, it's becoming more and more present because the awareness is there. Mm-hmm. People are thinking about what do they really need, not what's out here, being sent your way all the time. It's that knowing thyself, and what is it? What does that mean to me? Let me play with this some more to see what feels intimate to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're co-creator beings.
Absolutely.
You look at it at an energy level, all of this, the touch, intimacy, all of it is symbolic of exchanging energy. So ultimately, that's what we want to do, is exchange energy. We're made for it. That's what we are. We are a spark of source meant to spark someone else and someone else to spark us, and to constantly
sparking me.
Yeah. And to constantly be doing it with more and more people. It's to me, the more sparks you're sharing with other beings, the brighter your spark is. If you go a long time without it, your spark starts to dim, because we energize each other, we activate each other, we decode and encode each other. This is what we're made for. This is what 3D programming has kept away from us, and that's why it isolated us, and it kept us focused on scarcity, so that we would be fearful and go into hoarding mode and stay separated from other people because they're competitors.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's going to be the big change as we get out of being competitors to being co-creators, back to being co-creators.
And I love that I do see so much of that now. It is spreading so quickly, and I think it comes from people just doing it, living it, that example. And it's such a beautiful energy. I mean, so definitely there's been a lot more supportive energy, well, at least around most of the people I'm with, rather than that scarcity and competition. And that really diminishes all parties.
And what I've found is the more I'm in that energy, the less the people with scarcity mentality come into my field. Because it just,
that's going to make them uncomfortable.
Yeah, they might glance by, but it's just, they don't even approach. They don't even come into the field. It's not like I'm trying to push anybody away, but they just don't appear.
Interesting. Maybe that's why I'm, like I said, I'm not really running into that too much myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. The last one is Sky of Diamonds.
Ooh, I like that. Talk about that.
So we talk about the event, we talk about the flash, we talk about those are not single events, they're not single moments. I think we're in the flash now. It's already, it's like you're in the water. Before I was out of the water, now I'm in the water, and at some point I'm going to go into different water, and then other different water later on. But what I was seeing, we've talked about, other people have talked about, of seeing like a pink or purple fog. Other people have talked about just a multitude of colors, rainbow fog and flashes of light and whatnot. I have seen what people were talking about, but in addition to this, I see a sky of diamonds. It's imagine going outside. There are no city lights. Every electricity has been turned off everywhere. Think of how bright the stars are. Okay.
Yeah.
So take that and then see it during the day of just sparkles everywhere, but it's not way out there. It's right there.
Yeah.
It's right there, and it's slowly descending, and you can partake.
Yeah.
And it's got a consciousness of its own. That I see as the collective consciousness.
Well, I also thought, what came to me as you were saying that was, how the facets of a diamond show color too. So the color,
clarity, carrot,
will show that it's almost like a prism kind of, where you would get different colors from that.
Right, and that's what I see it, because diamonds are really they're crystals. So these were basically floating crystals everywhere. And you can, those what are those things called? They grow, and they have you blow them. And
the touch me nots, we always call them, but they're dandelions.
Yeah. So imagine having, in just your yard, imagine having thousands of those being blown all at the same time. And those are all diamonds. And you can go collect them, and you can go walk into them and have them touch you. And so that's kind of what I was in.
So do you think that is, I know it has a consciousness, but it sounds like being able to see frequency. You know what I mean by that? Like, having that dimensional quality of seeing, knowing it has consciousness, seeing a frequency. If I could see a frequency, that's kind of how I would visually see it, which is why I brought that up. Beautiful.
Well, it's interesting you brought that up because this morning with your eyes occlusion and what you saw, the light that you were seeing.
Oh yeah, we've noticed for I don't know how long it is that our eyes are changing, and
Me too.
Can't read, but then the next day I can read just fine.
Mm-hmm.
I've noted that especially my right eye is more occluded than my left eye. My left eye, I can see pretty much what I expect to see. My right eye, I have different, for quite a while, it's been roughly the same areas of my sight that have been occluded. But I noted, I was telling her, I was looking out my right eye and I was looking right at her in the kitchen, and I was noting that the occlusions had changed. Not 100%, but I would say 85, 80, 85%. And so I was kind of explaining to her the areas that were now occluded. And so I'm looking at this, and at one point I got this huge, just looking at her, I got this, it looked like a chandelier light shape completely bracketing her face, and it whited out her. It was really, really, really bright, like I was staring into a very bright lamp. And then all of a sudden, a circle appeared in the middle of it with just her eyes, and and I sat there and was moving my head, and it wasn't moving.
Wow.
And it wouldn't go away. It stayed there. I sat there and
yeah, and when he did that, when he wasn't saying anything at the time, he was just looking at me. And when he was looking at me, it was like my whole being was focused on his right eye. It was like I was being, like sucked right into the pupil. And then he goes, "Wow, see this light?"
yeah, so it was.
It was interesting. And I said, "You might have been seeing frequencies."
I don't know, but it was, the shape was.
So it was very distinct.
It was like a sconce, like a light sconce on the wall that would, how those sconces that go on the wall and the light shines up, and so it provides like accent lighting or whatnot. Well, this was like that, so it was like a dish, but this had very distinctive, roundness on the bottom and then distinctiveness on the top, and the whole thing was as bright as the sun.
So it's interesting. There are so many ways you could think about that. Were you seeing her in light body, total light body? Were you seeing her in another dimension, some aspect of her being? Were you seeing that true being in another dimensional quality? Because as these things are shifting, sometimes I had a period where I was literally seeing what looked like a black and white movie of people walking like through the corner of my eye. I've heard conversations, so it's interesting. You can really tap into so many things. So it's just fascinating because, were you showing him you in light body, that essence of what you look like if you were solely in light body? Or was that you he was seeing you in another dimension because you had that contact, you had that complete intimate attention? Fascinating.
Yeah. The funny thing is that when I started doing this, it didn't just appear. I was looking at her and I was describing the, how it had changed and all that. So it was exciting. And so while I was doing that, it just appeared. it went, it wasn't there, and then it was there. It wasn't like it just slowly came online. It wasn't there, and then I saw it. And like I said, I was moving, and it wasn't moving with me. It was staying completely centered on her. What I got, my impression was this was her inner aura.
Nice.
Mm.
Nice. And that was the next thing I was going to say is, as we're changing, our frequency is changing, it will be interesting to see these new gifts coming online.
Yeah.
So it was centered
around your eyes.
Yeah.
So it wasn't centered around your head. It was centered around your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, like I said, it was all bright sun kind of, and then just a slit for your eyes.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like this.
Yeah.
And so it really got my attention. It was kind of like, whoa. That's why I didn't talk for a while.
Yeah. He kept moving his head. I was like, and I wasn't saying anything because I was so locked into his right pupil, you know. And that's happened to me like 2 or 3 times this week with other people where I've just been right in, and it's always been their right eye, and then something has just come from me for them, and you could just see by their expression that they had, it was exactly what. So I don't know what the energetic was.
Right
was
brain.
Interesting.
Right side of the brain.
Uh-huh. Yeah, trying to activate maybe the right brain versus the left.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Very interesting.
Because I also saw myself later on. I didn't put this on there, but I told you about it.
Mm-hmm.
Of playing with water.
Oh yeah.
And I actually saw myself crystal clear, water coming out of a faucet, and I put my finger, like say about that far apart, and the water went like this and went around it, and I never touched the water. And then I saw myself having water in my hand and then levitating it, and it was levitating and staying there, and then I was making it vibrate. And I told her that I felt like I had broken the code, the water code, and they welcomed me, gave me their decoder ring, and I now joined them, and now we could speak the same language and play, because that's what they wanted to do, was play.
My reaction was like, when you said that, because water has come up for me several times the last couple of days. So interesting. Yeah, just I feel like the water has been communicating with me, which, all these ideas sound bizarre, but yeah, strong. And I realize I have a strong affinity with water. I love water. I'm drawn to water. Mm-hmm. So I might try playing a little more now that you've shared your experience.
Yeah, because I do believe, and I keep telling her, that direct manifestations are like right here. They're, for some of us that have opened our hearts, it's not a competition. We're all going to get there. So if I got there before someone else, I'm not going to think, oh, I'm superior to them. I'm not worried about that. In fact, I'm the kind of person, as soon as I figure something out, I want to go share it with everyone. But I don't want, now with being more in touch with my higher self, I don't want to ruin their path. Right. So I can just show people, and they can see me doing it. And I believe that's going to be part of my mission, is doing these type of things. Because another thing I was doing was I was taking that water and I was going like this with my finger, and it was going in a spiral. And I was just going like this and moving it around.
Wow. And the energetics of that. because water is a great conductor with
Mhm.
energy.
Well, you
So
talked,
creating that vortex,
Mhm.
wow.
well, you talked about swimming through the water too with like a force field. That
Oh,
was,
yeah.
that was.
I told her another thing is diving into water, and the water created like a not a it wasn't a physical gas like face mask. What it did, it created a bubble, and inside the bubble was oxygen, so that I could swim anywhere I wanted to go, and there I would constantly have that bubble, but it was see through. So you wouldn't be able to tell that I was actually not breathing water. It would look like I'm breathing water, but the mask was like this close, and I could still feel the water, but it was oxygen. I was pulling oxygen out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when you said that, I feel like this was a prior knowledge at one point. Like for some reason, I don't know if it was here, somewhere else, I literally saw that that was a common thing for somebody at some time or some place.
Mm-hmm.
So, wow, I love that you're bringing that in.
Mm-hmm.
I
Well,
love that you're bringing that in.
well, I've had a lot of them. I don't know if you've watched the videos we've been doing on.
Conscious conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've had dreams of being in a mech unit on another planet,
Mm-hmm.
and come to find out, I wasn't the being inside the mech unit. I was a walk-in, while another being was inside the mech unit.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Fascinating.
So, and I was seeing all kinds of different technology. I was
Mm-hmm.
sitting on a lighted table, and above me, suspended above me, were different layers of holograms, while techs or doctors or whatnot were looking at it. They weren't touching me at all. They were operating in the hollow area, and then one of them say, "Okay, go ahead and try that now," and then whatever, and then they were like, when they were done, they just went like that, and the holograms moved, and then I got up and I was fine. They fixed whatever they needed to do without cutting me open.
Yeah, because it's all energetics when we think about it.
Mhm.
I mean, we know that our illnesses and our injuries and stuff are things that are energies that are stuck in our body. So that makes sense that we should be able to do that without physically having to like slice us open and do something.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then all the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had meeting of all kinds of different levels, all breadth of
Mm-hmm.
information, meetings with single beings, with small groups, with
Mm-hmm.
groups so large I didn't know how many were there,
Mm-hmm.
and just sharing and working on just different facets of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said you were like an ambassador, you know, because I saw you doing that, meeting with so many different beings
Mm-hmm.
and having these conversations and having this ability of just being able to kind of get to the root, and just from this observation point of saying, well, if you do X, Y, Z, do whatever, and then, you know, so, but I saw you, like you will get called. I think I even wrote that. You'll get called to these places because there's something they need assistance for, and you'll meet and you'll have these conversations. And then, so that's, yeah, that's why I said he's kind of like an ambassador, but like not in the terms we know it by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of like a troubleshooter,
Yeah.
because that's what I did in the Marine
Yes.
Corps, was a troubleshooter. So I could see myself doing that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yes.
I signed up for that,
Mm-hmm.
going prior to signing on the dotted line to going in the Marine Corps, guaranteed provided I got through the courses. So it's kind of like what I did here. What I'm doing here is before I signed on the dotted line to come here, I basically was going to play these roles. And so I'm not surprised, but it's still, wow. It's just.
Well, it fits too with our ping, like getting pinged and going places. And that's what I thought of when she had said that to me. Was, you remember we said go to the community and you could quickly figure out what the pieces and parts were that needed to be, those kind of things were
when we first laid it out for Sheila and Lisa, we basically said, okay, so we had an island. We created it. Okay, this island was kind of shaped like a bent peanut. On one part of the island, it was jungle and had all kinds of different animals, parrots and lions and everything, and we interfaced with them. There were no structures. When we wanted to lay down, the trees formed, a hammock or chair, whatever. And then in the middle of that island, it came to like an isthmus, and it was all white sand, really fine white sand, and there were lagoons on both sides. And anytime we stepped in the water, the animals, the dolphins, the fish would all come up there and we could interact with them or whatnot. Then on the other side of the island was a big old tall kind of mountain and had snow on top. So if we wanted snow, we could go there. So we had everything on this island. But occasionally I would get pinged about someone needing assistance. And so I would see if she wanted to go. She would know whether or not it resonated, whether or not she was being called to. And then we would just, one time I saw that I was flying and I was carrying her. So, but most of the time I would bloop out and then bloop in, and we would arrive at, say, a community. And this one community was there was a gentleman there who was I don't know, my sense of him was a little off, and so he was telling me about what they needed assistance with and everything. So he was just kind of prattling on and whatnot. And at one point I finally just stopped him. I said, "Hold on, why are you telling me this? And where's your feminine leader?" And he goes, "What are you talking about? Blah, 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 and whatever." And I said, "Never mind." So I pinged her and she came forth. And then I said, and then she went over and started talking to her while I talked to him. He wanted to proceed to prattle on. I said, "Hold on. Who put you in charge? Like, why do you think and I started laying out what his strengths and weaknesses were and why he is not suited for being the leader of this community. And I was laying it out so directly, I could see he couldn't argue it. He couldn't argue it. He was like, you could see the impression was, how in the world do I know? Because I was telling him things that no one else would know without being able to reach inside his mind. And so at some point, he finally got quiet. She came over, and after she had been talking to her, we got the sense of who was really in charge and who should be in charge and what was really going on. So we just kind of helped them. We didn't do it. We just kind of helped them kind of straighten some lines. That's what I'll say it. And then we blooped out.
Well, and there's been many of those kind of stories. Yeah. So whenever Lisa was talking about the ambassador, she was describing, the role, and I'm thinking, yes, many times.
I should tell her about this happened many times. This is another one. This happened many times with different people and different setups or whatnot. But I blooped in to a street, and I just was walking down the street. It was kind of like a city. And car pulled up and said, "Do you need a lift?" And I looked in and I realized, yep, okay. So I got inside and I said, "Hi, Reverend." And this guy was a cross between Martin Luther, and Muhammad Ali.
That's what you said.
And so he proceeded to drive to his huge, huge church. And he parked, and we were talking the whole way, like we knew each other. And so we walk up to the entrance. He opens the door, we go inside. I go to the back, and he proceeded to walk all the way down and go to the altar, and everyone quieted down. The whole place was packed, so there were thousands and thousands of people. Mostly, bless you. So
she's been doing a lot of coughing.
Oh, okay.
yeah, with all the stuff in the air, probably.
Yeah.
But it's mostly a black church, but not entirely. But so he turned around, started talking to people, kind of whatever, and the reason I was there was I was turning on all of their telepathy. It wasn't to be permanent. It was just in that moment so that they could experience it. And so being in that moment, they all got telepathy. Now, that sounds great until they started realizing the truths. Who slept with who was undercutting who, and all that. And I heard people just and whatnot. But they needed, this is cathartic. They needed to go through this. And then I would leave. I'd walk out the back, and now it was the pastor's turn to basically help them through that. Mm-hmm. Another time I did it with a city council, like a government. Mm-hmm. And the governor had picked me up, and we went into council, and he had all his minions there, or all the government representatives there, and the telepathy came online. And so right away, everyone knew who was bought and paid for, by whom. And so all that, they were all figuring all that out. Mm-hmm. And, but it wasn't mine to fix. It was, I was assisting by opening some doors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well, that's a validation of exactly what I saw in different ways. Mm-hmm. But you were very matter of fact about things. Like, you had no attachment to anything when you were in these roles. You were very matter of fact about X, Y, and Z. And the thing I saw was you got called to Arcturus because you had helped them before, and you were talking with this being, and it was exactly that. It was like X, Y, B, Z, then so and so, and then you left, and they were the ones who had to do it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So just very interesting. Yeah. And you both carry very beautiful frequencies. They're very different, but together it's very magnetic. Like, you hold those, and I almost feel like you know how you have like positive, negative frequencies, and it creates that current. It's negative. Very much, huh? No, there is no judgment. But yeah, just how it creates this current. I think you guys are doing that. You're holding that frequency for the planet. Not even so much the collective, but I feel it really anchoring into Gaia itself.
You want to tell her what I told you years and years ago, not long after, only a little while after we met, about what I said about you and I?
Yeah. It was waiting on us. Yeah. So years ago.
This was years ago.
Yeah. Gosh, probably 4 years.
Yeah, for like 4 years
ago. When we were working on ourselves, and unveiling and learning and knowing coming online, he told me one day, he said, yeah, things are waiting on us to get.
Her and I.
Yeah, waiting on us to get ourselves to a point where we were safe in order for things to start moving and
Well, I also talked about
unlocking.
Adam and Eve. I
Yeah.
said it's almost like we are the Adam and Eve energy that Gaia and is waiting on for us to basically say, go.
Yeah.
We're ready. We're ready. Go ahead. We're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing. So I said, and not in an egotistical kind
And
of way.
not like we're the only ones on the planet at all.
But I was saying I felt like the planet, the people here were waiting on us to get our
crap in order.
Our shit in order, yeah.
Well, I agree. I can see almost like different light points that have that kind of dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And what they were waiting for is you all have a beautiful balance, each individually, of that masculine, feminine, like within you. You embrace both of those. And the way they show up right now, they also meet perfectly. So you it's like the yin yang, so while you have it beautifully balanced within, coming together, it's also beautifully balanced. And I think that is part of that energetic. But I definitely feel it, really going into the planet and up, because I think you both have, whether you're conscious, a lot of contact with interdimensionals, extraterrestrials, that kind. I think you have a lot of knowledge inside of you that is going to keep coming online, and so it's just beautiful to watch. It really is. So thanks.
Well, thank you. And we've been talking about how the magnification is. So when you have you're in balance and you're with another being that has that imbalance balanced as well, it's like there's a magnification of the energies when you're in each other's sphere. But the balance can only come inside of yourself, working on your own self, because if otherwise you're looking for the other part to balance you from some other being or something else outside of you. So the more work you do to have that sovereignty and be able to hold that space in yourself, then when you are with other beings that are like that, it just, the sky's the universe is the limit, not the sky.
Yeah. We had talked about that on Wednesday, about magnification, about being in those energies, and you can just feel it. And I loved that you brought up, if you don't take care of it here, then you do tend to, go outward, and that in itself is a total imbalance, not just for yourself, but for the other person. So yeah, I love just that self energy, working on that, and because then it just pours out. But magnification, yes, has been coming up a lot.
Yes. Well, and the healing of, because we've talked about the feminine and the masculine and the divine feminine, divine masculine, and healing those. Well, healing them inside of yourself is what heals them out in our environment. There's not doing things outside of us for others that is going to fix that. It's all.
Well, that's all a reflection
inside
of what's going on inside anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're working out there, it's you're trying to work on a moving target.
Mm-hmm.
It's you work here, and then it'll show up in your mirrors.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you'll know that you were on target.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go out there, you're just chasing your symbols.
Yeah.
So you're not really changing anything out there.
Yeah.
Very true.
I don't know. That email that I sent to you in response, did you realize that that was a message to you that was about
Not until Gina said something and she was like, you're going to have to go back and read that. Yeah, I'll tell you, it took me a few days to get used to being here again. Not that I wasn't functioning, but I was still carrying the energetics of being wherever it is you go, tapping into that higher consciousness. So yeah, I had trouble reading, speaking, writing.
Well, it was funny because Wednesday I said, when you saw the email, did you think that was, he was writing about him? And she went, yeah. And I was like, And I went like this. And she said, I need to go back and read that.
Yeah, when I sat down after reading your email, I started to respond, and something stopped me and said, "No, go quiet your mind, and we've got a bigger message for you to give to her." And I said, "Oh, okay." I mean, anytime somebody says, I need to provide something for her, I take that seriously. I mean, I do for myself, but especially when I find out no, this is going to be for what they need to hear. And I said, oh, okay. So I went, got my quiet time in my love sack, and I just basically let it come to me. And that's what I sent to you was.
I did go back and read it, and I feel like the message itself is encoded so I did go back and read it, and I got like aspects, and I can feel certain aspects kind of waking up or sinking in, whatever. And I'm so guided to do this, like let that work with that a little and go back, because I feel like each time I read it, I'll be getting some kind of new understanding and I feel like it's an activation is what I feel like. It's a stepping more fully into my true being.
Which is what we're all working on right now, is finding out who we really are. What's our mission? Who are we? Who are we supposed to be contacting? Because no one's going to be doing anything alone. That's not why we're put here. We're all sparks. We're all made. I believe we're all made to better ourselves, to make us more attractive energy recipients, and that the universe is built on that. Things that don't combine well are things that are not well centered, and so they naturally come together and fall apart. They don't have that sustainability. But those things that are more balanced can come together and create more sustainable hubs and connection points.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I almost saw like a meridian kind of system, but instead of in one body, it's the multiples,
Yep.
Beautiful. Well, anything else you have on your heart or mind?
Nope, I feel complete.
Yeah. How about you, Lisa?
I feel pretty good. I feel very joyful.
I woke up with this full bliss energy this morning. I just laid there with my eyes closed and in the bed, and I was just tingling all over. And that's kind of the way I feel right now. So I started the day that way and ended the day that way. That's beautiful.
That is beautiful. And I just love you guys. I love sharing this time. And I think the more we all do these kind of things, the more it really does hold us in that energy.
And sharing this with others will provide further activations, and then hopefully they'll go and activate others, and maybe even come back and activate us. So anyone can activate you as long as you open your heart to it.
Absolutely. Because we're all reflecting.
Yeah. We realized we were done being minimized.
Yes.
We're done being minimized. Now it's time to spark. Get out there and provide just an example, not necessarily the best example, not, just an example.
What is best?
What is best?
Yeah. But it also came up earlier, and it came up now again since you said this. We've had so much depression in our society for many years, and I think largely because it was pushing against that, that boundary that was there that couldn't be contained anymore, and so people, were feeling depressed because of that oppressive system, and so the breaking through of that is going to release a lot of that depression energy into creation. Those are actually very powerful in my mind, very powerful beings who are like right on that cusp that are just like, oh, I'm so done with this. It's just too frustrating. So when they can get a little crack in that and they can shoot through, it's going to be, everywhere popping off like fireworks, for these people when they find out that they can, break through.
Yeah, that they can be who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where I was going with that, but just that they get that they don't. I think that's part of the depression is feeling like you're being denied self-expression.
Yeah.
So now once people are again standing in their sovereignty, that sparks off, and it really does. I don't want to say it gives permission because that's kind of not the right phrasing, but it gives them that spark of light that they can shine inward so that they can start their own self-expression. That's what I would love to see keep going.
Well, so many people are locked in. They're locked into their family role. They're locked into their church role. They're locked into their work role. They're all these friends, groups, and everything. They're locked in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what these sparks are providing is them to break out of those which they feel are limiting them at this time, and to either change that group and say, no, I'm not playing that role anymore. Mm-hmm. If I'm going to be in this group, I'm going to change my role. Or to say, you know what, I'm going to go look outside and see what other groups I can join that I feel have a role that is commiserate with with what resonates with me.
And it comes, and it's almost like you were saying, Gina, it's instantaneous. You're on that frequency and it's boom, the right people come up or random, because you're paying attention, what appears to be random, all this message and information pops up. So it's magical. It really does feel magical.
It's very much magical. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you all. I hope you have a lovely rest of the pink moon evening.
Yes,
enjoy the love frequency.
You too.
We're going to turn.
We're going to stop.
Just stop the video, but we'll stay on.
Yeah.